Welcome, gamers, to the VALORANT North American Challengers, brought to you by Knights Arena. It is I, Q-Noob, along here with the loveliest Becky Bear. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I'm doing even better now that I'm here with you, and we're going to watch some good old VALORANT action. I'm so excited for what the day has to bring, some of the names that we've seen on some of these teams, and especially hyped up after the match that we just watched.
Yes, please. Let's kind of talk a little bit. We'll go really quickly about Shopify Rebellion. Did they exceed your expectations, or like how was it for you?
Well, considering my expectation was for them to win, I would say that they accurately just were at my expectations. I think you could probably read into the lines and figure out why we would want Shopify Rebellion to win, and I'll just let you do that and move on from it. But I think they did a really good job. I think that Let Us Cook also did a really good job kind of in that second map, really trying to come back, really making good adaptations. Fortunately, it didn't end up going their way, and Shopify Rebellion are going to continue to move on, so we're cheering for them on the sidelines here, but that is not the team that we were going to be following or going into today. Instead, we're going to be watching Berlin University Esports versus Zero Marksman Black today.
Yeah, and you were telling me you have a little bit of knowledge on Zero Marksman. I mean, obviously, both teams are going the distance right now. We have a collegiate, and we have a team that has consistently played throughout these tournaments, Tier 2, Tier 3 tournaments. So what can we expect from Zero Marksman going forward?
So it's a little weird. Zero Marksman has a lot of matches played that you can kind of read into, but they've had a lot of roster changes over the time that they have existed. And in my notes, I actually had written big Haven energy, which I don't even know why I wrote that down when Haven is not even a thing that could be picked today, but it sure is what I wrote in my notes. So that's something that you could kind of read into if you would like. But since we will not be going to Haven, let's take a look at what maps did get picked. And I will tell you, Zero Marksman Black do like themselves a Lotus, so you can see that Blinn did go ahead and have their first ban be Lotus to make sure that Zero Marksman Black were not going to be able to have that little bit of a comfort pick.
Yeah, and okay, you mentioned the whole idea of Haven and how they have really big Haven energy, and I'm going to give it up to the fact that there is those 3 sites, there's that little more room for creativity, so hence the fact that we have like Sunset here, we also have Bind. I believe even just looking at the picks and bans, we saw that Zero Marksman picked Icebox, and I'm guessing it's because of the new adaptations that there are, which is mainly that B site and mid, but what do you think kind of attracted them more towards that, and have they played it throughout these challengers so far?
They have not really played Icebox yet. This is going to be the first time in this tournament playing Icebox. I think they're really just picking it because it seems like a kind of blank spot in where Blinn live. Like, they haven't played a ton of Icebox, so I think they're just hoping that they have more experience on Icebox and they'll be able to hold that over Blinn. Sunset's a little bit weird. Like, that's going to be one that a lot of teams don't have in their roster yet. And so I think, like, for a similar reason that I just gave you for Zero Marksman Black picking Icebox, I think that Blinn chose Sunset for that exact same reason. While Zero Marksman Black have been around for a long time, they've only played Sunset twice. So Blinn is kind of, I think, in that same mindset. Let's go ahead, let's pick this map, let's hope that they don't have a ton of experience on it, and we'll be able to kind of win out on the experience game. If that is going to be true for both of these teams, then I think we will be going to Bind, and I am going to potentially tease a little bit that Zero Marksman Black do have quite a few Yoru Bind games, so I would be pretty excited to see that as well if we get into that third map.
I feel like Yoru is definitely a pickup, especially being now that Sky's a little bit more on like the bench, I would say. We are still seeing a couple of teams bring out the Sky, but not as often as we used to in the past. Sky used to be like a half dude just because you got 3-4 flashes throughout the half. And now that you don't, now you're just like, okay, like we need to kind of base it off of someone else. So the adaptation of having Yoru, I'm really excited. And I hope that we do get to see the Yoru. But I'm also excited to see what do we bring out to Icebox. Do you think that we could potentially see a deadlock on Icebox?
I think that would be kind of cool. We were kind of talking behind the scenes. That's something that a lot of people are kind of pulling out. We're talking about how a lot of people are moving on to Gecko, or at least doing some double initiator business, since just Sky isn't cutting it anymore. And so I think that it'll be really interesting to see, like, this is one of these newer eras for us to be moving into, where Sky isn't as dominant of a force, where we're seeing a lot of people move on to double controller. Like, we're in this evolution era. And so I think like there's a lot of things that we can speculate about, but we could go into game and these teams could have completely new things, especially considering that we haven't really seen Icebox from either of these teams so far.
I'm just excited. Mid so far to me has been the most creative aspect of it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Viper and the Omen being brought out. I think I even saw some teams play with like the KO and the Soba, like the double initiator even, thrown into the mix. But that mid area is what catches my attention the most, because I feel like that has been like the biggest evolution to Icebox. Before, if you smoked off mid with that Viper Cloud, you could just get into tunnel and really get into kitchen and cook your way through the rest of the map, no pun intended. But I feel like now with that window giving you that extra help for the defenses sided half, it kind of makes it feel a little bit more workable for the defense. What about you? Is there any changes that you're like, okay, this had to be done, or I'm like really looking forward to how they adapt to them?
This is one of those places where I feel like because we haven't seen as much of this map as a whole, and I will like also mention that I said that Zero Marksman Black has a lot of experience with this map. Obviously, some percentage of those are from before the change, but it is still considered Icebox. And so you have to wonder how much of that is going to carry over into this new version of Icebox, and if that's something that we can even count. But I would expect, since they did pick it as their first map pick, they're at least a little bit prepared, maybe had some kind of strategies from previous Icebox that are going to continue to push over into this, as well as working with a lot of those new changes. So while I don't have like a specific thing from Icebox that I'm really looking out for, as I said that, I immediately came up with something that I am looking out for, actually. So on the attacking side entrance, on that like B long area with those like crates, I really like how they made the change so that you can't just like kind of hold up in a place where people have to look up all the time. Like, there's a little bit of verticality, but not the same level of kind of tricky area that you used to be able to sit in. And I like the changes that they did there. And that would be something that I would be interested in seeing a little bit more play. You can use a little bit more short range weapons in that area, and it's not 100% dominated by a lot of those longer range weapons in the same way that it used to be, while there is still a lot of that, not as much as previously.
Yeah, I think both of those are great points. I'm just excited to see Icebox. I feel like Icebox overall throughout this Challengers has came out quite often. I'm surprised with how much it's came out. But again, Icebox was always a map that people loved previously. So I'm not surprised that they're like, oh, it's back. Let's bring it back into the mix. Well, we saw it a little bit more often. So I'm like, I think people are like, yes, we like Icebox. We can play with Icebox. We have an idea of how to play with Icebox. So I'm not surprised. Now, Sunset, on the other hand, I feel like it's a map that you either really, really love or like have no idea how to play.
It's funny you say that, because I feel like that was how everyone felt about Icebox previously. Is it was either like you love it or you hate it, and now Sunset kind of being that is an interesting idea. But I do feel like it's one of those where it came out and a lot of people have been like just so focused on a lot of changes that were happening on a lot of other maps that it kind of fell to the wayside. A lot of people weren't paying as much attention to being like learning all the nuances of Sunset. I do think that is kind of the wild card pick, and so I am extremely excited to see how that one is going to go. QNoob's very excited for Icebox. I'm very excited for Sunset. We're both from LA, so we should both be excited about Sunset, but alas, here we are. It really is going to be a treat to see how this ends up shaking up. And I think Blinn, again, is really just hoping that Sunset is going to be a pick for them that they just know a little bit better, and they're going to use their experience to kind of win it out.
Yeah, talking about Blinn, just on that Sunset, they seem to really enjoy the double initiator. And they brought out the Fade when they did go into that map. And I'm thinking, okay, Fade, kind of not the best initiator, okay? In my opinion, it's just like, okay, you have the, yes, Breach. I like the Breach. I like the Rolling Thunder. I like the stuns. You can definitely combo with the Breach, but I feel like the Fade has kind of fell short a little bit, especially with their distance, with their Prowlers. And I I don't know. It's not my favorite. If you were to be like, okay, what is a different composition they could bring out? What would you like to see? Because, I mean, obviously, they've done okay. They haven't won all of the sunsets. But, I mean, what could they cook up with this new kind of meta that we have going on?
I mean, I'm kind of interested in like as much controller business as possible. Like, I'm really loving the change into double controller metas that we've been able to see push forward. And I think that Sunset is a place where I would like to see that happen as well. As we get down into this Agent Select, we can take a peek on what is happening here. This is a place where I would say that Zero Marksman Black is a favorite going into this match. That is our first one of Icebox. So taking a quick peek at some of the exciting things that they're bringing to the table, namely this arena, while Blinn on the opposite side is really going more for this double controller, a little more defensive style with the double controller in Harbor. And as our friend Keg would love to say, the Swamp Comp.
The swamp comp. I love that. But it definitely makes sense. It's like, I'm going to throw everything at you. Can you get through that? Or can you be patient enough to wait out all of this utility? I like the fact that we're now seeing more Harbor. I love Harbor. I think Harbor is an agent that you need to learn to time better and kind of work together with a team. It's not a team. It's not an agent that you just run in a comp or in a rank game because no one wants to work alongside you. But again, Blinn, a team that obviously has played a lot together. I'm really excited to see how they use it to their benefit or how they use it to change the tide of things. But starting off this first round, we already see Zero Marksman just W-king it through mid. No type of defense there to hold them back. They get themselves onto the site. Blast getting one. Blast gets the second. And we do have a 2-for-2. Still a very doable. With Blast only 18 health in a dream, that could change the tide of things. Bananas late lurk gathering the rotation off of the bat. It's down to just two remaining. Monsi and Teague who are trying to get themselves on closer to the spike, but it's too difficult at this moment. And with that Zero Marksman Black, they are able to gather that first point on the board.
Yeah, that was a pretty kind of, how do you say, explosive start to this map. But I think that that is kind of really showing the level of kind of comfort that Zero Marksman Black, I feel, have on this map from their experience. As we saw somebody go ahead and hover one of those newer pieces of weaponry before tossing it away for something a little more tried and true and going for the Guardian instead. Oh, there we go. Okay, an Outlaw is going to come through for the side of Nanners. Full shields for the full side of Zero Marksman Black, and really just trying to make the most out of the credits that they were able to get going up against some Sheriffs and some classics from the side of Blinn here.
Something that we didn't get to touch bases on here, Becky, is the Outlaw, the newest addition to our weaponry, our arsenal here for all of us Valorant players. Shoots 2 bullets, and once hit, you are able to get eliminated just like we saw. The numbers dwindling one by one here for BC. And it is just proven that Zero Marksmen are playing the map. They're taking it patiently, even though they do have that weapon advantage. They're not being overly eager to take sight.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting to see Zero Marksman Black play this far back. I think losing Blast that early certainly makes it a little more tricky to try and quickly push on. And while it is an even match, anytime you're one of those players who loses on that initial push when you are up in weaponry, makes you a little bit more
30 seconds left.
Tepid as you push onto site, waiting for that Viper wall to come back up before pushing onto site. Now just trying to square off against these Sheriffs, but they are hitting true for the side of Blinn here. Spaz doing a nice job there, grabbing 2 before going down.
Okay, dust settles, and we're just down left to 1. Oh my goodness. Okino's able to just do things with the Sheriff. Sheriff might as well be a Guardian, right?
I mean, in a lot of ways, it might as well be, in Blinn making it sure seem that way there. 2 kills for Spaz and Okinos in that round apiece. And looking pretty good as far as utility is concerned for the side of Blinn now off of that pickup. Zero Marksman Black going to be relegated back onto those Sheriffs here. And it'll be interesting to see, do they continue to play as slow as they did in that last round now that they're on a save round, or are they going to go to a little bit more of a blitz play that they did that first time around, as the Outlaw is going to outlaw Kev from this game?
Outlaw just hits so diff. Also, fun fact, did you guys know that the first shot of the Outlaw is makes a different sound than the second bullet of the Outlaw?
I have not been listening that closely, so you did just give me a good little fun fact there.
Honestly, I could never tell, but there is, it's supposed to. So maybe I'm going to start listening a little bit closer. Oh my, Mikey, perfect positioning. Wasn't expecting two of the Zero Marksmen to be right at their crosshair placement. So now kitchen control is in their hands, but down to just two remaining players. It's making it that much harder. The spike gets caught up in mid and is going to get caught up by Monsi as well. Going down, it's just down left to Blast, and Blast can do nothing more.
All right, a round that you would expect to go the way of Blinn does, in fact. And now it's going to come down to Zero Marksman Black figuring out how they want to handle being on their full buy here. But I will give it to Blinn. They are doing a really good job of lining up a lot of these shots, and it seems like they're just being better marksmen than Zero Marksman Black, at least this far into the game. I know it's still early, but I'm extremely impressed with some of the shots that they've been able to get off, namely from Okanos, and we'll see if that's going to continue to be the case now that we're staring down some Vandals, and it looks like we're trying to go as quick as we did in that first round here. That Outlaw is going to try and have something to say about it, but all it says is that this Jet's got to push a little bit further back.
Poison's on.
Yeah, so one thing that I've heard time and time again is the idea that the Outlaw takes quite a few seconds to kind of shoot. So the way to play around that is to be more aggressive. As we saw so far, things are not working out in favor of Zero Marksman to make that 3 go down. And the spike is in full possession of Blinn, who now just need to relax. They seem to have just got the hang of that Outlaw, and they are able to use it, you know, kind of like a sniper. Of course, it's not just one shot and you're down, but it does do quite a lot of damage and is very potent so far in Okeano's hands.
Yeah, rough round, not going the way of Zero Marksman Black, how they would have liked. It seems like they were really trying to prioritize this B side once again, a place where they previously had success, and now it's looking pretty rough for them as they only have 2 players remaining, and this utility that is left for these 2 players is maybe not what you would like. Nanners is going to be able to pick one up, but Mikey's going to be able to just trade right back. Spot really being punishing for the side of Zero Marksman Black, and now Nanners is just going to try and bait as many people into those crosshairs as possible before falling once again to Blinn, who, I mean, are really trying to tell me that I was wrong about my suspicions of this map.
Yeah, this seems like it's in full hands of Blinn so far. And it's really nice. We were talking about this before, but to see like the collegiate scene come into these challengers and compete against these really high skill players. There is a little bit of a gap, but I feel like this has shown that the gap is merging. Like, players are just as talented. They're putting in as much hours as other teams, and I'm really excited for Blinn College.
All right, holding off a lot of these angles once again for Okanos. And it looks like Blast, as we can see, is gonna try and just see if we can do a little battle of those sniper rifles here. And once again, Okanos has not lost any of those thus far. It doesn't plan to start now.
Oh my. That mid lurk. Nanners had a nice lurk, but nope, there is always someone watching, and a flawless after that Outlaw battle that we saw from Blast as well. Oh man. Yeah, this defensor-sided team so far is looking really nice here, Bex.
It really is. I mean, and I think it's crazy how much of it is really coming down to this Jet being able to just shut down a lot of these long range areas as much as possible. And I kind of said that it isn't as prevalent as it was on the previous Icebox, but there still are some of those angles that are just tried and true. And I think, if anything, I'm a little bit disappointed that we aren't seeing Zero Marksman Black have a little more respect for some of those angles. And so as we can see here, timeout coming for Zero Marksman Black. And I do wonder if a lot of that is going to be thinking about how they can cover some of those angles where they are losing those long range fights, because it is really starting to dismantle a lot of what they've been trying to put together, as well as having something like that Empress and Lockdown available, seeing what they can make happen there. And I know it's hard to lock down a lot of those angles when you have a team comp like this. Like the Viper is certainly not going to be something like an Omen or an Astra that can give you as much freedom with those smokes. But you also have this Reyna, and I feel like we should be seeing a little bit more of that either lurking up the side while the rest of Zero Marksman Black kind of wait further back. I'd just be interested to see what this timeout is going to mean as far as changes in their strategy go. And it does look like instead of a lurk from the Reyna, we're going to see maybe a little bit of a lurk from the Viper this time around.
Which we do like that. We also see the Viper wall being set forth onto that B, while the rest of the teammates of Zero Marksman are heading over to this A site, where so far it was only Mikey holding on to the site. A quick rotation already happening from Berlin Esports. They're on their way, making their way. Spike so far has not found its home, just now getting settled after the utility of KJ has been removed. Shock darts hoping to do some damage. Don't quite connect. It's going to be a 5-on-5 retake. A little bit of damage was done to Blast, which is going to be the difference so far. But Blast putting out some damage as well. Attacker Killjoy's ultimate comes down to try to hold the site, being this is the first time we see this plant being held off. And we also have knowledge that the lurk, the flank is happening. Lineups are going to be in place, making it that much more viable for Zero Marksman to add this one to the Bucks. And it's pushing the players of Blinn off of the spike. They try to go for it, and the Cove gets added into the mix, but it just gets removed as quickly. So Marksman, they have seemed to found an answer to what this defense has to show.
Yeah, I think they dedicated a lot to go into that, though, and we did see, go down at that very end, which is a little bit unfortunate, considering that is going to mean that going into this round, light shields are going to have to be the purchase. If you're going to take a win after losing 4 in a row, you'd certainly like to keep as many players alive as possible. Luckily for them, Blast does have the Bladestorm at the ready, so we are going to have that to fall back on for the economy in just a little bit, while Yunel and Tim are both looking pretty close to gathering up those ultimates on that Viper and Sova respectively. So something to continue to watch out for as we see a very aggressive push forward. Going to try and shut this down as quickly as possible, but a missed shot to start off for Okeanos is going to mean that Zero Marksman Black still have a little bit of wiggle room this early in the round.
Okay, that was a very quick start. And I like how Zero Marksman is like, okay, you want to play fast? We're going to change the momentum. We're going to just slow things down, play nice and cool, and let you guys make the mistake. We do have a very aggressive Kev position over onto this A site, but the rest of the team, they're scurrying their way to the opposite, where they do have that Viper's wall to allow them to take on to the site. Spaz, though, is already locked and looking at the attack, or was looking at the attack after that orb being taken. It is a confirmation that there is some players around them. That's going to cause for this Viper's pit to get added onto the mix. Now, Zero Marksman's kind of like, okay, do we want to aggress that? Do we reposition? And that seems to be the case.
Yeah, I like this quick rotation with only 30 seconds left. They are really having to kind of push it to the limit here, and it is going to prompt the Empress to come out to Lear coming through, and it's going to be an attempt to push on, and Kev somehow able to escape most of those shots coming out from Monsi, and with 3 players down from Blinn, 10 seconds left, this will be able to be a site taken after a bunch of poking and prodding from Zero Marksman.
That should be an awakening to them as well. Like, okay, we bought so much time, and yes, we came down to the wire, right? It was only, I believe, like 21 seconds left on the timer in order for them to plant. And that's what allowed them to be really aggressive and just explode onto the site. I want them to do that more often in the further rounds.
Yeah, I will also say that while these rounds, normally you'd be like, oh, it's not a big deal that Blinn is losing them, they did use the Reckoning in the round before this, and they used the Viper's Pit in this round as well, and they're still going to take losses here, which I think is the part that is going to hurt quite a bit more, because while their economy, as far as guns are concerned, is still looking really good, losing those ultimates that are really good, especially that Reckoning as a retake capable spell, certainly is not going to be doing what you want to be doing now that Zero Marksman Black are coming back into this. On the other side, we see that Blast is handing over that operator to Yanel, which is an interesting call to put the operator in the hands of that Sova, but with this long-range ultimate ready in the form of the Hunter's Fury, I think it makes sense to kind of double up with, all right, our Sova's going to be hanging back as much as possible, so let's keep that in those hands as the Hunter's Fury pops very early, and it is going to be able to take out Monsi, so that is a controller down for the side of Blinn, and that means this A site is a little more open for the taking of Zero Marksman Black.
Yes, indeed. The wall trying to hold him back, but no, the double peek onto CT. And it's going to be a Viper's Pit now in return for the attackers for that safely plant. Although numbers aren't in a disadvantage quite yet, it does end up being a 2v2. Spaz manages to get themselves onto the site. Did spray, I believe, some damage onto Yanel, who's trying to hide into this Viper's Pit. And the Viper's Pit is so scary to walk into. You're like, okay, they could be anywhere. Yanel pops out of that Viper's Pit and immediately gets punished. This is why you don't peek out of the Viper's Pit. You stay put, you try and bite into it. Tim, though, is pushed off of it. It's going to go down, leaving exposure. And with that, Spaz is able to collect. Blinn Esports, they do it. They play around that Viper's Pit.
Yeah, that was very nicely done. Yanel gonna be probably a little bit upset for peeking out of that Viper's Pit, but it's hard. If you don't find anyone in the pit, you're like, I have the time, I can peek out. A very great start to that round for Zero Marksman, but very well done from Blinn, very cautious, playing time as well as possible. And even though Okenos does fall in that higher up area, figuring out exactly where Tim is and letting Spaz know opened up that round for Blinn to win so simply, and it's actually kind of like a beautiful like little trade back and forth. But Spaz just knowing where that final player is and being able to just wait for that ultimate to fall kind of worked out in a chef's kiss fashion for Blinn.
Oh, if only we could see Zero Marksman gather some information here. Instead, they're pushed back by Monsi, who goes and throws out a cascade, says, hey, I might be aggressing here, you don't know. And you can see that Zero Marksman's showing way too much respect for the time being. Nanners, though, has a really good place and indeed gets rewarded for that patience. That is the opt-down. Okeanos also has to sit back and just guide their team from the bench. Nanners able to stay alive with 17 health and a dream. But we do see that the spike is onto the A site, and they also have invested a lockdown to push them off. Oh my, so many ultimates invested for Hunter's Fury also gets thrown, but Nanners just catching the flanks on mid. It is just down left to Teague.
Teague isn't even going to go for the bomb. Teague is like, I have vengeance that must be felt to this Nanners player. I mean, you could probably hear me chuckling in the background. I think that Nanners is probably smiling as much as I am from that whole encounter.
You feel good. You could be the distraction for your team. Instead of being just the one dancing, you're doing most of the damage for your team, and you get the point as well on the board. So yeah, Nanners is feeling great at this moment.
Yeah, Teague probably not feeling too bad either, is able to take down Nanners there, but is also able to pick up that operator, so quite a bit of money at least saved into those pockets, and is going to be able to go back into the hands of Okenos, as well as a lot of buy-ups coming back into this round, and Blinn is going to try and keep themselves at a slow and steady pace on this defensive side. They started off really strong. They've been able to kind of falter a little bit here. No ultimates ready to go. Nanners does after those 3 kills picked up in that last round. Does have that lockdown, so that could be a little bit spooky, especially if they do continue to put their eyes over towards this A site where that lockdown can be so tricky. A nice push-up and a nice shot to come through there, at least being able to get that trade. It's got to be feeling better than nothing, as the Owl Drone is going to make the push-up a little bit more difficult there.
Right here.
So you lost one of your duelists here after this interaction, but you're still going to aggress on. We also know that the operator is here as well, but with that lockdown, they are forced to get off of the site. You also still have both of your leaders here from Reyna, which is what's allowing them to get full control of the site. They have to lurk CT. That recon bolt was golden there, gave away the position of 1, and Okeano's able to connect the operator shots. Blinn Esports is doing a phenomenal job at retaking, and the spike's not even down.
Everything went wrong for Zero Marksman there. I feel like everyone in that position was just a little bit off, and Blinn was ready for where Zero Marksman were, and it was just a little bit too predictable, and everyone was able to get a little bit of a piece of that pie there for Blinn, who have secured themselves at least an even half here, if not better, as we can see that Mikey and Okeanos are doing quite well for themselves. And that was a lockdown used, as we mentioned, from Nanners in that last round, not one that is being converted into a win, and Okeanos gonna get a quick 2 to start things off, so that hurts quite a bit for the side of Zero Marksman Black, who are falling like flies to this fly swatter that is an operator.
I mean, I have questions, but you know what? Okay, Muncie, you get your one and you go for it. Time and time again, Okeanos has just been playing A site. I don't think we've seen, maybe potentially goes mid, but it's like, what's going on with the B site, guys? Like, why are we not hitting that B site?
Yeah, it's hard. They lost a lot of rounds in the start of this half trying to go onto that B site, and now I think they've just decided that their chances were slightly better over towards this A site, and I like that we're kind of making this adaptation now where we're thinking, all right, maybe we go mid. I wish we'd have come up with this adaptation a little bit sooner. I wish this had been a decision that came earlier. And Okeanos has just said, I've got a clue as to where everyone's hanging out. Only gets one before Blast is able to blast back with that Guardian, thankfully. But Kev looking a little bit worse for wear here and is going to try and gather as much information as possible. And at least is able to tell you where Teague is hanging out for a second or two here. Spaz holding down B site, but is going to have to shift back as a lot of players are pushing up towards this B side.
I mean, 3 for 3.
Poison's off.
It's anyone's at this.
Oh, that hurts.
Yinel able to
that
get
hurts
one.
a lot.
Yinel makes that 2. We are seeing shimmers of gold here happening for Zero Marksman. 7-5 is a good place to be once you go swapping into the half.
Yeah, not a terrible half for Zero Marksman Black, but potentially also one that they were hoping to do a little bit better on. I think this is going to be interesting to see how they play this defensive side. I think that the Reyna is something that could show a lot of strength in doing a little bit of a lurk. We weren't really seeing Blinn do that at all on their defensive side. Nobody was lurking and kind of going around and trying to play behind Zero Marksman Black as they pushed forward. So I will be interested to see if Kev decides to do that on their defensive side, because I feel like that's something that you would have your Reyna player do canonically. And I'm interested to see how things are going to go now that they don't have as much controller power as what we saw from Blinn on their defensive side.
I mean, all I know is that Blinn Esports has been hitting their shots, but just as I say that, it's Blast who is able to trade Kianos and retreat for the time being. But between that exchange, there were two that have fallen, still pressing onto the A site. Blast wasn't expected, but the shots also were not connecting. And it's down left to Tim, who's making their way over from B site and being like, guys, what happened? Why am I the only one here? What is going on?
That's just that's the story of Viper players. I feel like especially Viper on Icebox, the story is always, all right, I'm finally here, and your team is fully dead. I feel like the memes are always that it's like the sentinel of the other site. And in this case, like on Icebox, a Viper is basically your sentinel on one site. Gonna go ahead and snake bite, try to get as much time as possible, but in the end, it's gonna be that little bit of vulnerability and the turret to finish things off. Of Blinn really making the most of that pistol round. I think it was just a rough place where Zero Marksman Black got just like quickly overwhelmed, and they're going to do some big saves going into this next one, as would be anticipated. And we're going to see big buy-ups. Teague actually kind of saving quite a bit. Going to go for that light armor and stinger and let some of the other players on the team go for those bigger buy-ups in those Guardians. We'll see how that shakes up as they push over towards this B side.
Oh, Tim's like, I'm going Cascade and a drone. I'm good. I'm going to wait for the rest of the gang to make their way over. And indeed, they have just as quickly. A lot of utility invested into this take of the site, but you have a lot of utility with double controller. They go straight into the cove, and they're met with so much aggression. That was the quickest round I have ever seen. If you blinked, I'm sorry you missed it.
If you're not a good shot,
I also have to kind of give props to Monsi. I'm really impressed with how impactful this harbor has been. I know we've only seen 2 of these attacking side rounds, but the way that we've been able to kind of, as you mentioned, the coupling of that push forward and that wall, as well as the owl drone, and just being able to see, oh, can we tag somebody up? Can we be able to see an outline and still be able to go through this? Like, the power of being able to do that while the other team can't see you at all, especially on places like that B long area, is really powerful. And I love that we're seeing Blinn have a strong attacking side sense for this map too, when I'd kind of written their team composition off as being defensive sided. But Kev going to be able to pull a little bit of weight there and be able to pick up a shot to start things off here for Zero Marksman Black.
One thing that I am kind of feeling from Zero Marksman Black is the fact that they seem to be a little bit too eager and also too quickly spooked, if that makes sense. Like, they're giving way too much respect to Blinn Esports. They are giving up the side. Yes, they're retaking it together, but it's like sometimes you gotta take those gambles. It's like, do I use utility and try to take 1v1s in order to give my team a number advantage? For example, here, Tim, okay, you got peeked by 2 players, but you still had the idea of, I'm not just going to give up the site completely. I'm going to try to buy time for my team to quickly rotate, potentially flank. And I would like to see more of that going forth when they do feel it. Right now, the retake is going to have to be a 4v5 without your Viper, which is going to make it that much harder because that's your solo smoker, quote unquote. And they are having a difficult time. The dash into the attacker line here by Blast, able to find one. Nope, gets sat down just as quickly. And Utility City here is for Blinn. They have the KJ, they have the Viper, and they even have the Shock Bolt. So they can just sit back, wait for the diffuser to come through, or you can just go out there and find the eliminations for yourself, bringing you to the double digits.
A rough one for the side of Zero Marksman. The moment that Leer came out, it was a quick reckoning to come through from Monsi and just shutting down so much of that space on that B side that you would love to be able to use to swing, and really forcing all of those Zero Marksman players into difficult to handle areas, or difficult for themselves to do their own thing and handle themselves. And Blinn doing a great job, really just doing the most with this very precise utility in all of these rounds. And And, if you're Okenos, also precise shots.
I would love to know what was the train of thought there by Blast, maybe hoping that there was a Lear or something. I don't know, but that was a really aggressive take there and quickly shut down. Yunel able to find one, specifically Okeanos, which is a very big player, I feel like, so far for Blinn. They're able to create that space, and just like you said it, their shots have been on point. Maybe now they have some sort of chance here as Kev tries to connect with Spaz, who just also is hitting their shots. Every single bullet for Blinn now doing wonders. They find the rest of Yunel on elbow and push onto the site. Recon giving away the position of Tim, who falls just as quickly. And now we have Nanners with just a sheriff in hand, trying to retake the site, hold off the plant, and it cannot be done.
Yeah, Blinn blazing forward here, 11-5, and not losing around since moving to this attacking side, and we are going to be able to pull out this operator here for Okeanos as well. This is going to prompt a timeout. That second one coming in from Zero Marksman Black. Now that they do have that Hunter's Fury available, as well as the Empress, and having more or less equal buys going into this round, that feels a little bit gracious to say. Like, we still are going to have the money to buy full armor for Yunel there. But it's interesting to me how they aren't changing up a lot of, once again, something that I continue to expect to see, but it's not happening, is a little bit of like a lurk potential. Mikey, for the side of Blinn, I will say, has done a really good job of putting a lot of utility out that is going to be able to catch somebody if they do decide to go for that lurk. But maybe once or twice we've just got to go and kind of trip some of that utility. We've got to make Blinn think that there are players coming from a different direction, because right now it feels like Zero Marksman Black is really playing into everything that Blinn has on their side, and it makes me worry for their future in this game.
Yeah, they do feel a little bit bland in terms of, like, you're not seeing one person really pop off or one person really take that leadership role or be that star. And I feel like they're also just, like you said, playing into specifically what Blinn wants them to do. Like, they know that Blinn's really aggressive on one, and they want to match that aggression. Sometimes you got to be okay with not matching that aggression. You got to wait for your opponents to make the mistakes. And so far, right now, they are doing that. They're just kind of staying back. We're keeping one player to be our visual guidance over onto mid. But you still see them be very cautious of where that Viper's wall is. And I mean, let's give it to Blinn here as well. They are doing a great job at creating that noise and creating that doubt in the back of the mind of Zero Marksman to be like, oh, maybe they are officially hitting here. Maybe they are going to come here.
Yeah, this is something that we actually saw Zero Marksman actually get a few wins off of when they were on the attacking side. This kind of slow movement and slow ascent. The big difference here is Blinn still pushed up those times.
Oh my. Okay, Kev, I love this. Yes, Kev.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I keep thinking to myself, wow, this game is a harbor to this Reyna diff, but if Kev can make more plays like that, I might start to change my tune, and it's going to have to happen, thankfully for Kev. Monty and Spaz end up lining up, and that collat is able to come through. So a round going Kev's way is going to help Zero Marksman find themselves a little bit of a foothold here.
Yeah, that was a very aggressive. I for sure thought that was going to be a 2K. But you know what? That's okay. We get the 1K. We get back into our defensive line, and we reset and use the power of friendship to help us come through. And that was so beautifully played. The time, the patience. That's exactly what Zero Marksman needs to continue to do time after time. And hey, maybe that also goes for Blinn as well. Maybe they shouldn't be as patient. They need to be aggressive, because that's what's working out for them. Kev, though, takes a different rhythm.
Ego.
Oh my,
Ego.
just go. UW key. I said we need someone that's
we're gonna lose our ego here
so
quick.
far, Tim is going to be able to trade off of Kev, who, like you said, yep, it's ego, but you have to have that confidence in yourself, and Tim had maybe a little bit tad too much there going forth, therefore now leaving this B site, but the rotation is coming just as quickly. There's so much noise being made on this B site, and they know that once the timer comes down, they have to be hitting. I mean, they still have enough time to really rotate if they wanted to, but that doesn't seem to be what Blinn Esports wants to do.
Ooh, low HP for Teague and able to get the bomb down still. Zero Marksman making those quick rotations, and Yanel is going to be able to win that long range fight. Blast is going to be the one closest and is going to try and take out some of that utility from Mikey there as well, and a nice recon bolt to come through from Yanel as well.
They were taking a little bit too much time for my liking to defuse, but you know what? Okay, fine. You get a half. Get off the spike. There's a little bit of... every time someone gets off the spike, when I'm like, I got you, I feel like trust issues there. But you know what? That's okay. Zero Marksman, they got the point.
Okay, I'm always excited to see a Reyna, because in my mind, somebody picking Reyna means that they are going to, I kept saying it last round, ego. I feel like they're going to be the ones who are out there making the bold plays and just trying to get the most out of as many 1v1 or 1v2 fights as possible. And it just like hasn't really been there for Kev in a lot of these previous rounds. I will say that these last 2 rounds that we've won,
Get out of my way.
I'm just going to say, Kev, maybe we got to just like turn that ego dial up a little bit. And we see it happening in this round as well. Unfortunately, as it is on the wrong side of the map for where Blinn is pushing up. But maybe this is the round where we'll see a little bit of a shift in this Reyna that has been happening.
I suggest you move.
Wow, everything is being thrown here for Blinn. They're like, we're gonna throw our reckoning. The blades pop off here. Okeano's able to get rid of Tim as well, which is going to be that Viper Wall, the Poisonous Cloud, and it's going to be that much. Okay, maybe even the lockdown as well. Everything is being thrown here. And it's not
we have
the last
Hunter's
round.
Fury we could throw into this round too.
I mean, honestly, at this point, might as well. Why not? Timer ticking. It is going down. Okeanos with the late flank.
This is the wraparound.
Wait, is it gonna work so far? Wait, they don't know. You talked about the Hunter's Fury, and why not? Let's toss that in the mix as well.
They said match point, gimme. Grabby hands. Want it. 4 ultimates for this match point, please. And I think that's a worthy trade. I think if you throw 4 ultimates into a round, it makes a little bit of sense. Zero Marksman Black now a little worse for wear on their economy, safe for Blast, who is looking a little rich with that operator full armor buy. This is one of those places where I maybe would have liked to see us just like try to get the ultimate orb and then pass that weapon off, but we have put Blast right in the line of sight here.
Please.
This is...
That was a choice. That was a choice. And that's okay.
It was a choice. It's a choice that led to the death of Blast and the push onto the site and the ultimate to come out from Tim.
Oh, but we do have a double flank here. And this is the first time I think that we get to see a flank happening. But they quickly just were like, no, we're not going to do that because of the movement bot. So instead, they are going to come down from mid. Tim goes down. The Viper's Pit is down here. And like we mentioned the prior round, every ultimate was used for the side of Blinn. So now
they maybe don't
rely
need
on themselves. Wait, no, we just secured the Viper's Pit as well with those eliminations. It's down to Kev, a 1v4. A very tall order to do. Can they do it? And no, it's going to be Okeanos shutting that down just as quickly. 13-7, Blinn Esports have secured the first map for themselves.
Yeah, and that was not how I expected that match to go from looking at a lot of the stats going into this one. This was kind of a dark horse map, both with the changes that have happened to Icebox, as well as looking at what a lot of the other map picks have been for these teams over today and yesterday. So kind of a little bit of a surprise. We'll see if it's going to be an equally big shakeup going into our next map, which is going to be Sunset, which I did anticipate that Blinn were going to take down. They have a little bit more expertise, a little bit more. They're more used to that map. They have some numbers to go behind that pick, whereas Zero Marksman don't. Is there anything you want to say about that match before we go to a quick break and find ourselves in the lovely world of Sunset?
Okay, I don't want to make any excuses here, chat, and I know you're still going to tell me that I'm making excuses, but I do think that Zero Marksman Back did have a little bit of a break, so they're warming up, okay? It takes a little bit. Whereas Blinn, they came from, they went into the third map, so I'm going
to close one too.
I'm going to send a little bit of like motivation here to Zero Marksman Back and believe that it's because they just need to get back into the shift of things. But we will see. Sunset is up after this break. Don't go anywhere.
The game starts long before the game starts. And warm hands are faster hands. Gain the upper hand and power up your pregame warm-up with Zippo hand warmers.
Face.